Hey all, John Moncrief here, and welcome to the Freedom Experience. This is where I share ideas, strategies, techniques that can help you to create a more valuable business that if you choose, one day down the line, you can sell at a premium. And that's ultimately so that you can experience the freedom that you dreamt of when you set off on your entrepreneurial journey. My clients want to go out of town for 6 weeks straight and have a company that thrives while they're away, and that doesn't give any problems. And they know that to do that, they have to be working on growing the value and growing a healthy business, a valuable business, and that ultimately can lead to a higher sellability in the future. And today I want to share a common misconception about creating value. And that is, as business owners, we equate increasing value of a business to generating more sales, to increasing our top line revenue. However, most often in generating more top line revenue, we actually increase what's called company specific risk. And company specific risk basically means that your company may be a slightly more riskier investment than a peer company in the same industry. So if you think of this sort of SIC code or Standard Industrial Code or the NAIC, North American Industry Classification Code, basically your business being compared to other businesses in the same industry is a little bit more riskier. And that risk sits in two places. Basically your business risk, which is the internal or external issues that might affect your business. So an example there could be operational efficiency. And the other one is financial risk, which could be your capital structure. So, for instance, taking on a client that makes up 25 to 50% of your revenue could cause you major cash flow issues, could cause you to have to make a very big investment and put you at financial risk. And if this sounds like something that's familiar to you, where, well, you're not alone. Lots of owners turn to sales and marketing as a first resort. I can't tell you how many times I'm pulled into a company to generate more leads or to get more sales. But the thing, they're thinking about just increasing value by adding more sales can actually cause problems in itself. And I totally relate. When I wanted to sell my business, the first thing I did was look at driving up revenue. But honestly, as business owners, how much time do we actually have to generate more sales? So if you think about the process of generating those extra sales, you're either going to have to bring in people to do that work for you, or you're going to have to grow your marketing and sales team. And if the fundamentals of the business aren't sort of structurally sound, if those operational efficiencies aren't there, you're going to run into challenges. So when you start hiring more sales and marketing people to sell more stuff, you basically can land up in the position where you're firing up more random acts of sales and marketing, random acts of S&M. And instead of kind of looking back at what's actually working, you're off firing off random campaigns and sales and marketing things. And you're just not finding the traction to start with. And most of us are already slammed as it is. We're putting out fires all over the business. So by kind of trying to chase this additional revenue and focusing on revenue alone, then you're basically magnifying your problems if your underlying business operations aren't sound. And you could be magnifying those problems by 20, 40, 60% with this additional business that you're adding. And if that sounds familiar, I get it. Here's what I tell business owners who come to me. Basically, focus on building value over simply increasing revenue. And when you're focusing on building value, you want to look at the intangible assets of your company. And those are the things that don't appear on the balance sheet and are typically buried in these sort of 8 areas. And I'll just go through those 8 areas with you quickly. You got the sort of planning areas, you got your leadership team, you have sales and marketing, and sales and marketing are 2 separate things. You have your people, you have your operations, you have finance, and then you have the legal aspects of the business. And inside those areas, there are intangible assets. And an example of that, people. So you may have rock stars marching along beside you, or you may have disgruntled employees or high employee turnover. So you can see that there's quite a distinction there. You may have clients who are loyal and they have very high net promoter scores and they refer you. Or you're getting a referral out of a client is like pulling teeth. Getting a case study or getting a testimonial is like pulling teeth. So what you want to do is take a look inside your intangible assets. And there's a huge amount of value buried in those intangible assets. And if you're stretched very thin already with a business, so as I say, going out and trying to look for new revenue, for new sales, can sort of take you to a whole new level of frustration, and taking on new people when you aren't ready in terms of the sales and marketing folks only throws more fuel onto that fire. So let me try and illustrate what I'm saying in terms of focusing on those intangible assets and focusing on the value of a business with a simple example. So we know that one way of valuing a business is using something called EBITDA, earnings before interest and tax and amortization. So if you imagine that you have an EBITDA of $100,000, euros, pounds, whatever currency you're in, and that your industry multiple is around 2 times your earnings. So if you take your earnings or your EBITDA and you're at $100,000 and your industry multiple is 2 times earnings, basically you're looking at a value of the business of around 200,000 K. And very simplistic. Now, what most owners want to do, or will go and do to increase the value, is to look for another 100,000 in earnings. So you're going to go out, you're going to add salespeople, or you're going to do this yourself with all the other fires going on in your business, and you're going to go and look for another 100,000 in earnings, which means probably a huge amount more in actual revenue, and you're going to need new staff. You may need to ramp up your production facilities, but basically you're going to have to take the business to 200K in EBITDA or in earnings, multiply that by 2, you get 400K. However, where you'll end up now is that you now have twice the amount of production and twice the amount of product and twice the amount of people perhaps and services, and you're offering more services. Things are getting more complicated, but your multiple of 2 for that industry stays the same. What if we change this up? What if we keep earnings the same at 100,000, but we double up your multiple? So what does that mean? Basically, we look at doubling the quality of your business. And we look at those 8 key areas that I mentioned earlier. So if we go back to what those 8 key areas are, we take a look into your planning, you take a look into your leadership, take a look into your sales, your marketing, people, operations, finance, and legal. And inside there, we look for those intangible assets that are buried sort of deep in that space, which can help us take your multiple from 2 to 4. So we still come up with the exact same valuation increase that we did. So going from a value of 200 to 400K, but we do it by chasing, by sort of working smarter and not chasing more revenue, but increasing the multiple. And when I work with clients, we start by dissecting those 8 areas of the business, and we figure out where your weakest areas are, and we start working to grow your intangible assets. So we look at systems, your marketing systems. We look at your value proposition. We look at client fulfillment. We look at your staff and at your team, and look at each of those intangible assets and figure out how we can increase the value in those intangible assets. And the trick here is that instead of sort of running around like a headless chicken trying to chase revenue, grow your revenue, and do it on top of an unstable business, thereby creating that risk that I referred to earlier. So instead of creating creating company-specific risk, you are instead increasing the value of your business, creating a healthier business and a better quality business. And at the end of the day, so as you can tell, obviously, while revenue is important, there is a huge amount of value that's buried deep in your intangible assets. And one of the most reliable formulas for increasing the value of a business is to increase the value of the intangible assets. So you want to move from an old tired workforce, not so much in age, but in terms of energy, to a more energetic, committed team. You want to look for, if you're looking at your equipment, you want to make sure that your equipment is new and works properly and has a less of an overhead in terms of repairing it. If you look at your sales processes or your marketing process, any of your processes, you want to make sure that those processes work and are reliable. An investor is going to pay more, even though the revenue is the same. They're going to pay more or pay a higher multiple for the extra intangible asset value. And working on that intangible asset value, you're basically building a healthier business. A healthier business that can deal with the growth. So you're setting yourself up for growth, you're getting yourself ready for those additional sales, and you're making sure that your systems in your business works. And at the same time, you're creating a far more valuable business and a business that can essentially run without you, meaning you can step away. So when somebody comes looking at your business, they're not wanting to buy a job. They're looking to buy potential growth, not the risk of earnings collapsing in the future. They want a business, not a problem that's held together with sort of duct tape and marketing mirrors, smoke and mirrors, marketing mirrors. You get the point. So they want to buy something that has room for growth, that can scale, that has all the right systems in place, and they're prepared to put a premium on buying a business where the intangible assets are valuable. So thanks very much for listening today. If there's any questions, you're welcome to just drop me an email. I'll be in the show notes. And if you enjoyed what you're listening to, then please subscribe, share, all those good things. And if you need any help with this, you can go to letsgrowyourbusinessvalue.com. That's letsgrowyourbusinessvalue.com.